Alright. Top of the evening to you, heroes and heroines. Let's check that I'm actually streaming, yep. And welcome to Practising Programming in C, the show in which we are going to continue with our explorations in Cinera's config file. So yesterday we set the stage for it, basically. We did a bit of planning and came up with this idea here. This is kind of like all the stuff that we think we're going to need in the config file. We also did some planning for the database, because that will kind of have to change. Well, I mean, yes, it will have to change, because part of the config file is making a single instance of Cinera handle multiple projects at a time. That's essentially most of the point of having a config file in the first place. It would have been too arduous to do multiple projects if you had to configure it the way we currently configure it, which is just by using command line arguments. It would have been too arduous to do that. So it's the config file which is really enabling the multiple projects. And in order to do the multiple projects, the database format will have to change to actually have a place to represent all the different projects. So the database will have to change. And as we were talking about yesterday, I'm going to try and roll into that particular database version change as many things as I can, just so I don't need to, just to keep the number of different versions of the database to a minimum. So that is where we are at, and I think let's just go for it. I think let's begin, as we were saying we were going to begin, with playing with a config file format. Making sure that it allows us to configure what we need, make sure it's like parsable, unambiguously parsable, and is, I suppose, kind of pleasant to write, maybe. Although, I mean, that might not be so important, because it's just, I mean, it's not like HTML, which you're going to be writing. You're writing in this format all the time. Like that's how you produce all the stuff. It's not quite like that. The config is just like you write it once and then you're done. So maybe there doesn't need to be so much emphasis on making it pleasant to write. But I guess it's no bad thing if it is pleasant to write too. And frankly, I mean, it might literally just be exactly like this, honestly. Is that true? Possibly not, actually. We'll see though. We'll see as we go through. We'll see what feels nice to do, and go with that. I think what I will do first, though. What was I thinking of doing? I think I was thinking of just trimming this stuff down, because this is just a straight up copy from the Cinera help. It's this thing over here. I think I was thinking of trimming this down just so it's just the bare stuff, but frankly I possibly don't need to do that. So I might just start by just starting a new file and just write a config, I guess. Is that true? I'll tell you what, actually. No, I will trim this down. yeah, just to make it a bit easier to see all the stuff that we need. Because like we've got this information in the help text anyway, so we're not losing any information. No project defaults, yeah, so we're going to have to preserve this. Although again, like I say, this is actually, it's stored down here, isn't it? Yeah, the project info is down here, yeah, so that's just like that stuff. So I guess technically I could actually nuke this. I just need to have the idea that it's the default medium. The play your prefix. I think that was to do with the output file, wasn't the output attribute that we now got. Open search results in the same browser tab. Yeah. Oh, actually we need to say what it is. Oh, that's a point. I've been deleting the line below, haven't I? Guess that's okay for these guys because they actually have a thing that they actually take. But these don't have that description. False description, yeah. In fact, I could just do that. Quit after syncing with the annotation files. So yeah, I think I'm going to just get rid of this option entirely. Because I never use it, and you know, I mean, I could use it to like, you know, just quickly, just when I'm testing, just to like generate the stuff and then quit. But I never do, so it just feels like something that's just not useful at all. And also I do say here, unsupported, this is likely to be removed in the future, so this might as well be that future time when we do remove it. So I'll just say to do my remove. Force quote crash rebuild. Now this is an interesting one because all this means, I believe, is, in fact, let me just double check what this does actually mean. Where does any of this, where does the config happen? The config initialization. Right, it's the mode. And what was it? It was force quote crash, so no cache. So if we're on no cache, okay, so edition single, I mean, even this might just get, that might just go as well actually, honestly. Yeah, I'll have to factor in how single edition relates to this current stuff, the new config stuff. Let's make a note of that. God. So config here. And that should be sufficient. This no cache thing. It's like, if the mode is no cache, or we're in addition single and the time, sorry, or we're not in addition single, and the, yeah, and it's time to fetch a new quote. I like the way that I sort of set the last quote fetch here. I mean, I probably should be saying oh right, build quote is on should fetch quote. I see. So yeah, really, last quote fetch would make more sense if build quote itself sort of set the last quote fetch. What? I suppose it doesn't really matter too much. Let's make a note of that no cache business. Load. Well, frankly. What it's called? Yeah, mode no cache. So remove mode no cache. In fact. So the default log level, that should be something that you configure. And the default update until should be something you configure as well. Okay. So yeah, these are the things that we want to be able to set. And then we want to be able to set the support icons, the credentials, the category medium, and the product info. So let us get a new file open. Where are we? There. Spydrake QR as Jangle. The night of the Beak Angle. You know, this is unfortunate. You mentioned me, but I didn't hear the bleep. Let me just. I was thinking about this actually. I think if I were to change this, if I were to change play to be MPV, let me just try this. Okay, please could you mention me once more? Feels a terribly indiscreet thing to say, but hopefully that will actually let the sound go through. And I need to pop back to the chat. So yeah, yeah, I didn't hear it. That's unfortunate. Let me just see what happens if I just run this myself. So I did hear that. So it did come through. Print beef. Execute in the background MPV. Every time I compile, you could alter your angle based on the build time. Or maybe rotate based on the time of day. It'd be nice if that worked. Could I do that? It'd be interesting if... I mean, it's possibly not possible to do at the moment, but maybe you could do it with the OBS plugin. So yeah, unfortunately, it just didn't... Type 2 messages too quickly. Oh, what happened? Did you get booted out? It's not my responsibility if you got booted. I think I'm going to close this window here so I can actually see a bit more stuff. I might start with this. So I would like the ability to do comments, and I probably would like the ability to do well, in fact, let me just follow Fyrie's example. Multi... God, this takes some doing this. Multi-line comments. There we go. So I would like the ability to do that. I think that would be nice if I could do that. So those are both comments like that. And also, yeah, that. It'd be great if WeChat could actually, if it could figure out, if it could, highlight you in this situation, the vertically things and also the backwards. It'd be interesting if we do that. So I think we're going to have, we need the notion of scopes. I think we need the notion of scopes. So basically the idea of that is we're going to have like different projects are going to have different bits of information set, essentially. So like they're going to have a different annotations directory, different templates directory, or they could share it actually, because you could find that a template, like a single template, could just handle everybody. Honestly. So you want to have in the case of the annotations directory, you probably want to have, I mean, that could also be shared, honestly. But I don't think it could at the moment, because I think everything in a particular directory, as long as it has the HTML extension, it will get pulled in. So whatever project it's supposed to be for, it would just get processed. That's how it currently works. But I suppose we could potentially change it so that it only actually processes files that are a particular file format. File names that have a particular format to them. But I think the usual case is that the annotations directory will be unique to a project. I mean, I'll tell you what. One thing we could do, you could have like, you could have the difference, which you could have like, how can I say this? You have like a global kind of annotations directory, which is like, I mean, you could write it as, well, could you write it as relative? Could write it as relative, and then it's just understood. If it's relative, it's understood to be relative to the home directory, maybe. But you could make it be, you make that be, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Right. So let's say we've got this thing like this. Annotations directory is equal to or something like this. What's it called? How do you run that? You say this, and then you say like you've got this is what we're figuring out. We're figuring out the actual syntax here. If you do something like this, in fact, if I save this, can I get it to be syntax? Because I believe conf is a type, isn't it? Oh, dude. Honestly, Fiery, you're pulling out all the stops. Syntax. Yeah, who cares? Doesn't matter. Oh. Hang on a minute. So that had figured out... Oh, I'm on set paste. There we go. That's what I'm after. Perfect. So if we do like annotations directory here, and then you were to do, for example, I mean, risky itself actually is, I'm not on Pulse Audio. That's probably Pulse Audio, isn't it? So I'm not on that. Although this could be informative. DCC highlight PV. What have I got? I'll just finish that thought. Risky is going to be itself a parent project, so there will be. Well, I mean, frankly, we could actually use this same idea here, right? Oh, also, we could potentially have the idea there's like environment, well, not environment variables, but variables in this file. So how could this work? I mean, this is getting a little bit fancy here. I'll just do the basic version. Let's do it because we're kind of going to work. We're working through how this is going to work, so we don't have to like figure it out a priori. We could potentially say this, and also let's just say that strings are quoted. I think that would be the sensible thing. Just say that strings are always quoted and integers are not quoted. So you have Miyatatsu and then risky, right? We could say that if the directory does not begin with a /, then it's considered to be relative to the annotations directory of the scope above it, right? Or, well, not scope above it, but the scope that it's sort of within, if that makes sense. suppose to explain that a little bit, I could then say within here, let's say that we've got a project, and this is the, well, let's use the book club, right? And then within here, in fact, I don't like annotations, so we just do HTML directory. Right. And also just that. I'm not sure if that would be the best way to call it. Don't know. Right, but you could have book, and then book itself has projects within it. Right? It's got computer organization and design. And it's got Risk 5 Reader. Right. So we could say that this thing goes like this, but if you see what's happening here, all I've done here is basically write this same thing again. I've written book again, but it's just the project's name. Same up here, I've written risky, which is the project's name. Now, I could also, what I'm basically driving at here is rather than actually explicitly writing that out, you could actually just say something like this, right? But then the question is, well, if you're going to do that, you're doing this same thing for everybody, right? It doesn't matter whether it's project coad or project reader, you're still going to be appending the project, right? There's no actual condition going on there. Now the the logical extension of it is just like what we have here is essentially the hierarchy that we've got here is risky, book, coad, right? We've got project equals risky, project is equal to book, project equal coad. Right. So we have that structure, and we're just trying to. It just so happens that the directory structure that we want is exactly this, right? So you could just sort of say, like, the one thing we're missing out here is Miyatatsu, right? But if we have a variable for the project, which is this, we could similarly have a variable for the owner, right? Because we are going to have to set that anyway. Right. And Miyatatsu himself will also have one of these people here. They're going to have a set of credential information. So there's Miya's stuff. So we're going to have to configure this somewhere as well. If we have this idea that we can use the project as a variable, use this project as a variable, so it's the project of the scope that we're in. The owner Miyatatsu is going to apply to all these scopes. Right, it's going to apply to this scope, it's going to apply to the book scope, and then the coad scope. Right. You could just say, if it just so happens that the structure that you want is the structure that I'm writing out here, you could just sort of say this, right? And then in order to produce this thing, you could have, I mean, I want to call it something like family, really, but project family or project tree. Hierarchy. I mean, it's kind of a family tree of projects, right? It depends what kind of scoping we're going to have. So currently the only scoping that we actually have is predicated on the projects. Maybe that is the only scope that we do have, right? And what I'm basically thinking here is, would we need something like, project tree? Would you need to say something like that to disambiguate the different hierarchies that you have? Or would it be enough to just say project, family, let's just say. Could family just suffice to talk about all the projects? Let's make a note of that. Do we need any other types of scopes than project-based ones? Would be nice if this highlight, actually. I know I was saying this before. There we go. So a config gets this highlighting, does it? Actually, there we go. Just change it to C. That's perfect. Do we need any other types of scope project-based ones? If so, we could do with having different kind of variables for different hierarchies. Can't we just have which is a slash separated sort of slash separated string of all the project values. Guess that's okay. But you see what I mean? If you had this sort of thing, you could just do annotations directory. It's just this, and then you don't need. Well, I mean, all this can just go away because you don't need to actually represent any of this information. You yeah, anytime you see HTML dir, this thing here just gets used, right? So you don't need that, don't need that, you don't need that. But the owner of risk, you need to set what the owner is. Yeah, you do need to set what the owner is. And the other things you need to set for the project for these guys are these. Okay. So it's worth bearing in mind that risky. Well, actually, I mean, this is another question, isn't it? I mean, honestly, if WeChat could recognize that, that would be some transcendent stuff. That's like proper machine learning stuff there. Yeah, the question was, this risky thing here, it's sort of it's kind of a child itself, right? So it's kind of what I'm basically driving at is within the way that I'm currently understanding it is under the risky project, there is actually another project under here called risky. But I wonder if instead of doing that, yeah, I mean, what I'm driving at basically is if you look at the address bar of these people, we're on risky now. Then we've got book coad, then book reader, and then risk, right? They're all essentially children of guide.risky.tv. So risky itself is just a sibling of these. Risky it's not a parent of these, is what I'm basically driving at. But I wonder if we could somehow swing it so that, well, I wonder if we should, or if it'd be a good idea to do it, so that we configure risky to be essentially the parents, but still have it appearing as a sibling. I'm not sure. That kind of feels a bit. It kind of feels a bit dicey to me. Let's put a note. How do I word this? I mean, it's sort of like um, what it provides, such that it provides the parent scope of other projects or peers. I mean, while I'm writing this, it sort of seems like you could sort of do that by overwriting the HTML directory. Or, well, overwriting it's going to be the base output directories, really. Let's leave it as a consideration and continue. Let's continue with this idea here, where we're actually going to explicitly say that within the Risky project, there is another project called Risky, which is the actual sibling. And similarly, we're going to have Risk as well. So the title of this is going to be Risky Business. I mean, book. Maybe you could have a title for the book as well. Oops. And this was Riskalanius, wasn't it? Riskalanius. So this thing here will be book club, but it doesn't actually have any. It doesn't have any annotations itself, because it's computer organisation and design that has the actual stuff. An idea I did have was basically the idea of combining titles. So you can see here we've got Book Club Coad and Book Club Reader. The title of Coad and of Reader, Coad, by the way, is Computer Organisation and Design. The title of this I've just specified was only Computer Organisation and Design. It wasn't Book Club Computer Organisation and Design. The idea that I was kind of wondering about was like, could you sort of say that you have a title of the book project, and then have like a sort of, it's kind of like a delimiter, right? Oh, and also we just spotted that I haven't been using equals. I wonder if I don't want to be using equals. I wonder if I could dispense with that. You know, because I've just been instinctively writing title that. I mean, that's another question. Question for the syntax. Do we want, well, it's like equal or not? Because the only thing that really matters there is, can it be parsed unambiguously? Well, I mean, also readability, isn't it? Readability or writability for the person who's writing it. that kind of does matter a bit as well. But you also want to make sure that you want to definitely make sure that it's unambiguously parsable. But let's continue with the delimiter idea. This was basically like if you have something like this, then I don't know, you somehow specify under these guys if there is a delimiter, then when you produce the title, you actually stick on the title of the parent at the front. You know, whenever you actually show one of these things. I think I could actually probably show you exactly what I'm talking about here. I mean, I can show you up here, Book Club Coad. But under here, we say, welcome to Computer Organisation Design, because the title of this is just Computer Organisation Design. Right, similarly up here. Right, that's the that's this thing here. I mean, it could be cool if it does say, welcome to Book Club, space, Computer Organisation Design. Maybe that could be cool. And then also these things up here, you can actually generate those properly. Because currently, I mean, Coad is just, I mean, it gets that from nowhere. So you can sort of, you know, it's not capitalized in here. This is literally just hard coded. It's hard written in the thing. And the reason that it was hard written, for want of a better term, is that I wanted to say book club, but I didn't have the ability to actually construct that string. Another possibility actually is, I mean, when we do this whole template thing, we might want to have the idea of actually outputting a sort of structure, outputting a tree, basically a nested list essentially for these things. So you'd have a thing where it's like risky business is one of the things, book club is one of the things, and then underneath, you know, nested under book club is computer organisation design and risk drive reader, and then you've got riscalaneous as another thing that's like a sibling of book club and risky business. So if you were to represent that here, you could have risky business here, riscalaneous over here like that, and then like a sort of half height thing that's like book club, that's like the two things. It's like a kind of cell merge thing in spreadsheets of these two, and then computer organisation on design on this side and risk drive reader on this. Oh right, yeah, and if you do that, then actually the delimiting thing, you'd have to have a way to communicate that you don't want to delimit. You don't want to use a delimiter. And also you need a way to tell it exactly how much of it you need to, you know, how much of the hierarchy you actually want to display. Is that true? Or could you control it enough with the config? With the actual, I mean, with the stuff that you write here. Because basically what I'm sort of driving at is, if you say something like, I mean, also it's like, because I was sort of thinking if there's a delimiter, that is the thing that triggers the combining of strings. You could then, I guess, you could look up the hierarchy and see if there's anybody else who has the delimiter. Oh no, but the question was, wasn't it? It was how can you actually? Yes, you would need a way to toggle that. You know, so you have a place where it actually uses the delimited thing, and you have a place where it doesn't use the delimited thing. You know, so you're not stuck with one or the other. Maybe that would be more product of the, maybe that'd be a configuration in the template, actually. You know, you just sort of say in the template, like a template tag would take the argument, like, kind of delimit or don't delimit. That is the question. You know, in which case we don't need, well, we can put the delimiter here. And I think it is a good idea to have the delimiter separate from here. I mean, you could conceivably just sort of say that the title for this guy is Book Club. Right. And then if you want to delimit these guys, well, not delimit in this case, it's really, you know, it's just if you want to construct the entire string from these, you then take the title of their parents, right? And then it's like, well, for everybody, you need a way to actually well, that'd be a systemic thing, basically. So for each project, you just keep popping up the scopes to see what the titles are, and just appending prepending the title to the parent. And that could actually work here, because this outer project here, doesn't have a title, right? So even if you're taking this person here, and you try and you want to construct like a longer title for it, there is nothing for the outer project anyway. So it'd be prepending nothing. But yeah, like I say, I think it'd be better to split up the title and the delimiter, just so you have the option of sort of saying, you know, you could have like a similar template tag, which is just like parent title. Yeah, so when you generate a file, a HTML file for a particular project, it just pops up and it can just give you this title here. Yeah, I mean, you could actually then sort of say this. You could say parent delimiter. I mean, it's a bit cheesy to be doing that, but you could conceivably have a thing that allows you to do this. Although, that would be more like what you'd want. Well, I mean, having said that, it's not even that. It's like, if you wanted to use this at all, you might as well just have a thing that is just like delimited project title. Well, it's not delimited though, is it? Like I say, it's not, because that isn't really describing it. It's really project family title, I guess. I mean, I guess that would be okay. Obviously, we can think about this more as well. Because we already have a project title tag. Do we not? Oh, I've lost the thing. Cinera project, yeah. So this is the actual title. Cinera project. Cinera project ID will be equivalent to like book basically, and risk and risky. So we kind of like this. And this thing would be producing. Hang on a minute. Just coming out, so I'm not actually. See if it doesn't get compiled. Cinera project family will be producing. Oh, that's a point actually, yeah. Oh, yeah, because we've got the delimiter, right? Right, so that would produce that. I wonder if by default, we should have a delimiter that's like /. Unless you have different delimiters for different keywords. So you have title delimiter is that. Right. So when you're producing the title, it uses the title delimiter. And then as you go down, let's just say that we've got another project under coad. Let's just say that we have coad 1, right? It's part 1. So there's 2 volumes of coad. If you have that, and then you use Cinera project family, for volume 1. The way that I've been thinking about it is that this thing here will propagate down through the scopes. So it's going to be propagating down through the coad project and through to the volume 1 project. Right. In which case we'd naturally come out with this. But it might be nice if we could have a way to make it produce something like this. Right. Am I looking at this right, actually? Book club computer design. There's a colon and then a space. So we've got book club, which we're getting from here. Colon space there. Then we're going to have computer organization design here. Right, yeah, that would be right. basically what I'm driving at here, could you have a thing that's like sort of the title prefix and suffix, I guess. And this thing would be this. And then a title suffix will be that. Right. Gets a little bit cheesy because you've got like I guess rather than delimiter, then you could just have suffix here, couldn't you? So if there's a suffix, it appends it. If there's a prefix, it prepends it. Did you see actually that when I did this, I did product equals 1. I'm not sure whether that's because I copied it from up here, or whether I actually typed it. But then when I did, like all these three were consistently without the equals. It does seem like I'm preferring the not equals syntax. Just thinking a bit more complex situations. Just because I think I want to be able to support pretty elaborate hierarchies, basically, and I don't want to. Want to actually allow that. If we then were to have under here, right, product A. Let me actually just stick this up here. So this is talking about that project. Let's just say for the sake of argument that we do have this. And we want to produce a title for this whole thing here. We want to produce a title for that, but the title that we want to produce is this. Or that. Well, actually, it'd be that, wouldn't it? Could we have a nice way of doing this? I guess you could sort of say that, here we go, we've got this particular project is going to be the first element in a parenthesized list. The list is going to be delimited with this character, and it's going to be, well, I mean, the list items are going to be delimited with a comma, and the list itself, the parenthesized list itself, is going to have a parenthesis, open parenthesis at the start, closing parenthesis at the end. Maybe that could be nice to have. So the title prefix won't cut it, in other words. It'd be just kind of like a title list, wouldn't it? Yeah, let's just try that. Title list. Prefix is equal to that. Title list suffix is that. Title list delimiter is this. I do like that word delimiter, don't I? Keep using it. Keeps popping up from time to time. Right, because this is scoped, this project A is scoped within project 1, that inherits these guys here. And because this itself is not the place where it was, where this was initialized, this won't use the list prefix. But it will use the delimiter. And it would use the list suffix if it's the last one. If it's the last of its own siblings. Is that right? Sorry, no, it would use this if it's got no children itself. By the way, I should just mention that I'm listening to Alison Moyer's Other, and it's fantastic. Highly recommended. Right. Let's just go another nest level deeper. I've done project equals. Right, if we were to do this, then this would naturally shake out to be this, wouldn't it? You know, according to what we've been doing. According to this rule here, that would end up producing all of that. I think. Actually, remember what I said about if this doesn't have a child, if this project here doesn't have a child, then it would use the title list suffix. I don't think that's the case. I think it's really like if this is the project that we're actually talking about, right? So if the Cinera project family thing is using a template for the project B, then we use the final suffix title list suffix character or string. That's really the case. I mean, this kind of feels sensible, I think. We could conceivably say, could we not, that a particular project wants a different delimiter. I guess we could just straight up specify that a list, the prefix and suffix of a list can't be changed by a particular project. Well, actually, do we need to specify that, actually? Do you know what I mean? I mean, we could conceivably actually say the suffix for this, for one of these, like if you get down to a project I, you say this, right? And then when you see this, you actually just use that as the suffix. And also, for all that, you could also probably override the other guys as well, couldn't you? Like, is there any reason why you shouldn't be able to do that? It wouldn't necessarily make sense to have, like, one project be delimited differently from the rest of its family. But I guess there shouldn't be any reason why you can't do that. Is that true? I mean, I would like to be able to change the delimiter just for this. Maybe that would be fine, actually. Right? So you could have, if you get down to this situation, you end up producing that. You know that this is a list, so you don't go back any further to include, you don't include computer organizational design in the list. You only start off the list down there. And because these guys have got, is that consistent? Basically, because these guys have got this title list delimiter set to this. By these guys, I mean this project, and this project. Those guys have got the delimiter set to that. Then they get this part B. Oh, sorry, yeah. It's actually not, it's not this, and this. It's actually just that and this, right? Because these guys, A and B, are siblings. So you wouldn't consider A's settings in B's stuff. You only consider B's parents, which is this person here. So in other words, you only have the one. You only need the one comma. Yeah, I guess that could be consistent. I mean, this is really pushing the, it's really pushing the syntax and the sort of bounds of what you even might want to do. Because ordinarily you'd probably just want to have a list formatted like this. Opening brackets, closing brackets, and then just delimited however. But I think we should be able to make it possible like this. And I mean, surely you wouldn't want to be able to use a different delimiter depending on who you are, if you know what I mean. In other words, what I'm driving at is, you wouldn't want it to end up looking like this. It's tough to say. I think that might just have to be a limitation. Unless you have a thing that's like limit it all, right? In which case it does actually delimit them all like that. But if you don't have to limit it all, if it's just a normal delimiter, then it only delimits itself. It only delimits itself and any children. Yeah, I think that sounds like a reasonable compromise. Right. This applies to the needle limiter to all projects in the hierarchy. Well, to the entire family. Well, the entire list, really. Let's also just give it an example one. Yeah, that seems reasonable, I think. So where are we here? Cinera parent title. Cinera parent delimiter. Cinera project families. I think I'm in favour of removing this delimiter, aren't I? You know, because you're going to have the ability to actually construct this whole thing. So you don't need a way to, you wouldn't need a way to piecemeal construct the string yourself, in other words. So I don't think that's needed. But the Cinera parent title could be used. That could still be handy. And for book club, the Cinera parent title will be empty, won't it? Because books parent is risky, this risky up here, and this risky doesn't have a title. Right, so this would just end up being nothing. but in Coad's case, Cinera's parent title will end up being Book Club. Should you need to use it for some reason. I mean, I'll tell you what, you might want to have all the descendants. You might want to be able to sort of produce all of this lot producing all of that lot, but like, how would that factor in with the list? Ancestors. Is that spelled right? Ancestors. Right. And then probably, we're doing the ancestors, you end up with this, maybe? It doesn't delimit it because you've got the it doesn't delimit it because it's not including the project itself in the string. Unless rather than doing this, you actually want it to produce this, right? You want it to produce a Cinera project family of its parents, including all the list stuff, right? So the project ancestors of this person would actually end up being, it would ignore the title list prefix. It would ignore this stuff for this project, and actually use its parents' information. So you end up with that. That might be the most reasonable way of doing that. Do you know what I mean? There is a possibility that we might want to end a list, basically. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that within this person here, within Project I, we've then got another project. What can I call it? X. Just say Project X. Right. And the title of this is going to be well, what have we got here? Volume, part, section, paragraph. Paragraph X. Let's make it one, actually. Might be nice to have that, just so we can make sure we can disambiguate between this project 1 and this project 1 up here. Yes, we've got a full hierarchy. Well, so we use the entire hierarchy to actually disambiguate between projects that have the same ID. Let's say that this is paragraph 1, and the way that we want to let's say that we want to produce from this, right? Is that right? I think that is right, because we're going to be taking this person's entire family, including their delimiter, but we actually want to say we want to communicate the fact that this person up here is the last guy in the list. Here we've got a different syntax to everything else. We've got a thing that's just like, it's just sitting on its own. It's a keyword that has no argument or has no value. Maybe that's fine to have. So this is kind of like a syntax question. It's like, not quite sure what you call it. It's like a sort of solo keyword, I guess. Dangling keyword. Solo keyword, one that does not take a value. Or it does not, is one that is not assigned a value. I mean, that would communicate to us the end of that list. This guy does get the list suffix. And it would put an end to this whole thing up here. So it would essentially clear actually, I'll tell you what, title suffix. So we're in a list. So yeah, I think we're basically saying that once we're in a list, these guys actually stomp over the title suffix. Once we come out of the list, maybe that title suffix needs to apply again. Right? So ordinarily, we'd end up with this. However, we could say that the title suffix of paragraph 1, oh, it's the title, what is it? Yeah, it's title suffix. Title list suffix. Tell you what, maybe what we need to be actually doing is adding the space onto the end of this guy. Right. So these people actually use... Well, no, that's not right either, is it? Because in this situation, you'd end up with a space there. You do want to be able to say that. You do want to be able to say that. But ordinarily, you'd end up with this. We don't want that. You don't want that. So, God. Where do you actually overwrite that? I guess anybody, isn't it? Like, once we get into this list, anybody could sort of just say that the suffix that we previously set for this person is just now whatever we want. The list still does this. Once the list closes and there's more stuff to come after it, then it uses the new title suffix that we've set. Right? That's kind of seems reasonable to me, I think. So anybody within this list could set the title suffix to the thing that we actually need after the list happens, because that setting is going to propagate down all the children. And then if you want the title suffix to go back to becoming a colon, you just do it when it needs to be done, don't you? We just need to. I think we need to make sure that we actually set it high enough up, basically. So it'd have to be up here. Right, because if we do it in here, we're talking about a suffix. And a suffix is going to come after the current guy's title. After the titles of the current guy and all of the children. So we need to actually set that up before it happens. Yeah, I think that seems reasonable. That's how you do that. Yeah, let's go with that. Just need a minute for a bathroom break. So I'll be back in just a couple of seconds. A couple of minutes rather. Hopefully not a couple of hours. found a cursor. Now, I'll tell you what, we've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes, so I think what I'll do is I'll take a break. Might just call it's just this is the day's stream, and then resume tomorrow. I'm getting a bit hungry. And yeah, just taking a break would just give us a chance to kind of mull over this stuff. But I mean, I think we've kind of established some concepts here. We've got the idea of scopes and how they work. We've got some questions. We've got like equals or not, to equal or not to equal. Got the idea of having a solar keyword that's not assigned a value in the case of this person here, which seems fine. It's probably fine. There should be no reason why there's just why you can't have like a bare keyword which just sits there doing its thing. Consider configuring a project such that it provides the parent scope of other projects, but ends up appearing as a sibling of those projects. Right, yes, the idea of that was basically, rather than having this risky project within risky, you actually just have this guy gets assigned the title risky business. I mean, that might just be fine, actually, if you think about it. Because essentially what we're saying is... Oh, actually, no, it might not be fine. No, it totally won't be fine, actually. Right. What I was about to say was... Everybody inherits... Everybody, in this situation that we've just been talking about here, the Cinera project family building up these people, they keep kind of building up the string from the whole hierarchy. If you were to set this guy's title, right, if you were to set the title of this outer project to be risky business, then this person down here, book club, yeah, if you were to use the Cinera project family template tag within a book club person, it's going to necessarily inherit that person. It's going to inherit the risky business, which we don't want. So I think that's made the decision for us, I think. Has it? I think it has. If I mean, maybe you could conceivably sort of have a thing that just says, like, this person here should be considered a sibling of any descendants. Maybe you could have that, but that feels a bit cheesy. Because what if you actually want to have, what if you want to have risky, well, let's just say for the sake of argument that it's not even, well, let's say, yeah. So like in the case of this book club here, this book club has a load of children, but let's just say for the sake of argument that risky business is the one that has loads of children, right? So that's basically all this whole structure down here is actually up inside the risky business project, the top level risky project. If you then had this option that just sort of said, don't include the descendants, then you're going to lose all of this. You're not going to be able to have all of that. So I think that has I think that has answered the question. I mean, in some ways, actually. Just thinking in the case of somebody like, in the case of the Handmade Network, where they have risky business, the public risky business, and Handmade Hero, they have, and Bitwise as well, they have these 3 projects that have different owners, right? So they probably need to scope those. But I wonder if you could just dispense with this actual project equals risky thing and just say that. Right, so you say they've got a scope, which is all of this business. Do you know what I mean? Because well, actually, I suppose you could use this project equals risky thing here. This could be used in the family. Could be used by the family variable, and the family variable will actually use all the stuff that it can do, all the parent project IDs that it can do. And you can sort of choose to use that top level thingamajig if you want, or you can choose not to. But yeah, I think either way, you definitely don't want to be having a situation where the risky business project that's actually supposed to be a sibling of all these people, you don't want to have a situation where that is actually configured as in a way that would make it the parent of the others, because that wouldn't be correct. So yeah, I think we can get rid of this note. Do we need another type of scopes and prototypes with? So we could do with having to. Yeah, we don't know, do we? We don't know if we do have that yet. Because everything's project. In fact, we will. We are going to, aren't we? We're going to have the member, the owner, rather. Oh, well, I mean, this is another thing. Like, when we have this owner here, I suppose technically, and I think I spotted this in Casey's asset metadata format. In order to maintain consistency, I think he had all these things. He had these like single variable types ending with a colon, and I think he also had like compound types ending with a colon after the closing brace like that. I mean, there is that question, like, do we even need that? And as you can see, project equals, well, actually no, this was one of the this is a thing that's got a scope. Yeah, I have been consistently using that semicolon. So maybe I do, yeah, maybe that is what I want. but I don't know if it's actually necessary. Is it? Well, maybe it is necessary. So you can distinguish between a compound type. But then it's like, well, these keywords are going to also say themselves what they are, aren't they? You know, you're going to have you're going to sort of, you know, the parser is going to have to know that a project is a compound type that can have a title. It can have a title, this prefix. It can have a title, this delimiter, title, this suffix. A project is going to have all of these things. So we don't need to communicate to it. We don't need to sort of we don't need to be careful about communicating or distinguishing it. We don't need to be careful about distinguishing compound types from one of these, which is, well, or a title which is a single thing. We don't need to be careful about doing that in our syntax, because the parser itself is going to know what the difference is. And in all likelihood, when it sees, like when it parses this, right, parses this keyword title, it assigns this string to the title. Once it's done that, all it wants to see next is what the next keyword is, right? It doesn't need to care. I don't think it should need to care that it's suffixed with a semicolon, because this doesn't communicate to it anything, if you know what I mean. Let's put that as a note. But in terms of the scopes, yes, the question was in this owner thing. Like, would you want to be sort of saying under the owner, Miyatatsu, and then this guy's full name is like, right? Would you want to be sort of doing that under here? And I'd suggest that the answer to that question is no. You would want to be actually having a separate credentials scope, right? And that credential scope can then be used by everybody else. So you would essentially be sort of saying out here, well, it'd be like person Miyatatsu, name is Miyu Okura. Homepage is that. Risky.tv. The support URL and the support icon is equal to, well, it's, I mean, this is another thing, like, maybe use a variable for it, right? And then support URL is equal to patron, isn't it? Right. And then when you see the owner, Miyatatsu, this actually looks up into this. Now you probably want to have a way of looping. We need to pass in all of the people. So you'd have this array somewhere. You're passing in all the people, and then when you see the owner, you want to actually be looking through that array to see if Miyatatsu was in there. I don't think you need to be scoping the people. You know, like I don't think you need a people scope. It's just like this. I don't think you need that. Partly because these guys won't even be in these people's scope. If you know what I mean, because it's just like this is at the root scope, and essentially Risky is like a sibling of that. And as we've already established, siblings don't inherit the stuff from their siblings. They only inherit from the parents. You could sort of say, you could have said this, so you got the people, and then you stick that down there, and then this is all indented like that. But then it just gets a bit bonkers. It's like, if there's all this stuff, that inherits from everybody else, then I guess you'd have to be really cognizant of the actual hierarchy. And I think it'd just make configuring it a bit of a chore. So ideally, you'd probably just want to be able to say this. This is at the root scope. I don't know, unless there is just some special way. Do you actually... Well, no, I mean, it's parsed differently, isn't it? As I was just saying, we're going to parse this credentials array into its own... Well, parse this credentials block into its own array, and then whenever you see one of these people, the owner, you know, whenever you see something that's like, you know, owner, annotator, you know, whatever roles that we've got, co-host, that itself is going to have to look up into the other array. It can be okay if it's like out of scope, because scoping that doesn't really, as I was just saying, if you're scoping that, it just makes it arduous to configure. I don't know. That was basically a little investigation of this, wasn't it? Do you have scopes other than project-based ones? And the answer's kind of like, well, no, isn't it? You know, in this case, we've got person Miyatatsu. We're not going to have a person within Mio, are we? I think that's a fine way to end the stream, actually, with that thought. We're probably not going to end up with a person inside Mio. Thank you and goodbye.